There's a particular kind of disorientation that comes when the path that you've been on just ends. Not because you choose it, not because you saw it coming, but because circumstances shifted and suddenly you're standing in this place you never expected to be, that you've never been before, and you're asking yourself, what now?
She walking like a boss.
Walking like a boss.
She so confident, you know she got the sauce.
Know she got his house.
Hi friends, welcome to Off the Record, the mini pod companion series to our podcast, On Record Off Script. I'm Yolanda, and the mini pod is where I share the messy, unfiltered truths behind growth and success. No guest, just authentic conversations about the challenges we face when building something meaningful. Now, before we go any further, please do me a huge favor. If this conversation resonates with you, if it sparks a new idea, or it just pushes you closer to your destiny, hit the like button and subscribe to be notified every time we release content and our most powerful interviews with incredible guests. Now let's dive in. Radical change. It is hard, and without a safety net, it is downright mind-boggling. I am not speaking from a would have been, could have been, should have been place. I'm speaking from true experience. Today, I come to you as a business owner who helps leaders and entrepreneurs build strategies that accelerate their impact. www.swangbro.com. But it wasn't by design. As hard as it is for me to accept, I'm officially one of over 300,000 Black women who in 2025 having to completely rethink their careers. And look, I have the track record to prove that I'm a successful executive, but so do I have the record to prove that I need to make a shift. So this shift felt like a whiplash, felt like a sense of instability. And the idea of starting over, oh my gosh, felt like a slap to the face. It's one of the reasons I started my own business, this channel, this podcast. It started as just a desire to share my insights about leadership, resilience, and navigating major transitions. To talk through what this actually feels like for leaders and entrepreneurs who have to experience the highs and lows of building remarkable pathways. But it has grown into something much, much, much bigger. I'm realizing as hard as it has been to accept this change, I wouldn't be here having these conversations, and I certainly wouldn't be able to share my experiences if it were not for this disruption. And everything I'm going to share with you today is not theory. It's what has actually worked for me and friends who might be navigating similar circumstances. Now, this kind of disruption, whether it is a career transition, a business that didn't work out, a relationship that ended, even a health crisis or a loss, it doesn't just shake your circumstances, it shakes your sense of who you are and where you're going. And the hardest part of all of this, it feels incredibly isolating. Like you're the only one rebuilding while everyone else has it all figured out. You're looking at the LinkedIn post and the Instagram post thinking, it has to be me. I can assure you it is not. Today, we're going to discuss 4 strategies that I think might help you as you're on your journey navigating really radical change. Also drop what strategies you've used in the comments. Now, strategy number 1 is just to remind yourself of what is still true about you. When the world around you shifts and changes and circumstances tend to collapse, it's easy to feel like everything about you has also collapsed. Okay, you lose the job title, the business, you might have lost the role or the structure. And suddenly you're thinking, who am I without all of those things? When that question comes up, it's a perfect time to remind yourself of the things about you that are still true. Even when everything feels different, a good way to do this is to stop and think about yourself in 3 different ways. The first is to remember all of your skill sets. No matter what changes in your life, what you are great at doesn't change with the circumstance. Can you explain complex things? Do you know how to manage big projects? Do you have adaptive intelligence where you can read a room and you teach? Are you a problem solver? Are you a connector? These are all capabilities that live with you. They don't disappear because your circumstances change. But when you're in shock, you can't really see them. You have to actively remind yourself This is still true about me. The second thing you have to remind yourself is that you have already survived a lot of stuff. Think back. What other hard things have you gotten through? Write them down, not to compare your pain, but just to remind yourself, I've walked through fire before. I know how to keep moving when things are hard. This matters because when you're in the middle of disruption, your brain tends to forget your own track record. You have to show evidence that you are unstoppable despite the instability of this moment. And finally, you need to think about what is still of value to you. Maybe your circumstances shifted, but what you care about is still the same. Maybe you value growth, the ability to contribute, your connections, your creative impact, your freedom. Whatever it is, just remind yourself that those are values that still exist. These values are your compass when the map is gone. Not because it makes the situation easier, it doesn't, but because it gives you something solid to build from. Remember, you're not actually starting from zero. You're starting from you, and you're more than your circumstances. Now, strategy number 2, give yourself permission to build differently. Oh my God, I wish I knew that so long ago. Here's something I'm still learning. Just because the old path ended, it doesn't mean that you have to recreate that path exactly. I always say when you experience a moment that doesn't feel good, we naturally try to recreate that moment, that relationship, that space that we once felt most comfortable. That can be good and it could be really bad. When you've had success before, there's this pressure internally and externally to get back to where you were as fast as possible. To rebuild the same kind of career, the same kind of business, the same kind of life. But what if this disruption is actually permission to build something different, something more aligned with who you are becoming, not just who you were? Let me be clear. I'm not saying that disruption was meant to be or it's a blessing in disguise. That's dismissive of how hard this actually might be for you. But what I am saying, since you're rebuilding anyway, you get to ask questions that maybe you didn't ask before. Questions like, what did I tolerate that I don't want to tolerate anymore? Maybe it was work that drained you, environments that didn't value you. Questions like, what did I not have space for before that matters to me now? Maybe it's more time with people you love. Maybe it's work that feels meaningful, or your creative expression. Or what if I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone? What would I actually want? What would I actually be doing? This is the hard one because sometimes we're chasing external validation more than internal alignment. Whatever the case, you don't have to rebuild those things and you don't have to rebuild the same way. The people who come out of these transitions strongest aren't the ones who go directly back or exactly back to where they were. They're the ones who use the disruption as permission to build something more aligned, permission to see things differently, permission to build new expectations for themselves. This doesn't mean that you have to completely reinvent yourself. That is not what I'm telling you to do. But it does mean that you get to question assumptions you didn't question before. You get to build with intention instead of just momentum. Strategy number 3, build you a board of trust. This has been a game changer for me. Here's the truth about navigating radical change. You can't do it alone. No matter how much you try, you cannot do it alone. And I don't just mean you need help, though you might. I mean something more specific. You need people who can witness what you're actually going through, not just for comfort or the comfort of showing up, but because here's what happens in isolation. Your brain starts to lie to you. It tells you that everyone else has figured it out, and it tells you that the situation is much worse than it really is. It tells you that you're the only one struggling. Sometimes it might tell you you need to wait until you have it all together before doing the next big thing. And all of that makes everything so much harder. So you need what I'm calling your board of trust. Now, these are not just advisors, though you might need some advice from time to time. They're not your cheerleaders, though a little encouragement won't hurt. They are people who see your reality and remind you that you're not alone in this. Now, here's what your board might look like. You should have at least one person on your board whom you can tell the full truth to regularly. No filtered version, the actual truth about what's hard, what you're afraid of, and what you're trying to figure out. This could be a friend, it could be a therapist, a coach, or even a mentor. What matters is that they can handle your reality without trying to fix it or minimize it. They just reflect back. I see you, this is hard, you're still here. The other people on your board are 2 to 4 people who are navigating a similar transition. Now, their transition does not need to be an identical situation, but similar enough that they get it. This is the group where you can share what's working, what's not, and what you're learning to essentially crowdsource your strategies. The final group on your board of trust will be a few people who've been through a similar circumstance and they're on the other side. Not to compare timelines, everyone's timeline will be different, but to remind you that this is not permanent. You will rebuild. And here's what I've learned. You don't need a big army. Even 1 or 2 people who can say, I've been there, here's what the other side looks like, can give you the hope that you need so that you can see yourself on the other side. Now, this circle keeps you from isolating in your mind, in your head, and it reminds you that you're not alone and reminds you that you're gonna get through this. Together, they create a web of connection that holds you when everything else feels extraordinarily unstable. The last and final strategy, practice taking the next step, not the whole journey. When you're in the middle of radical change, there is this enormous pressure to have the whole path figured out. People will ask you, what's your plan? Where are you going? What's next? And you're thinking, I don't know, I can barely see past next week. So let me give you permission to release yourself from that burden. You don't need to see the whole path right now. You just need to take the next step in front of you. And here's what I mean. When circumstances are uncertain and the future isn't clear, trying to plan a year, 2 years, or even 5 years is almost impossible. Your brain just can't do it. It doesn't have the information, and sometimes you don't have the capacity. But you can almost always see the next step. The thing that if you did it this week or today would move you forward. It would move you slightly closer to getting to your goal. This might look like reaching out to someone in your network. This might look like taking one small action on a business idea that you've been thinking about. This might look like setting up time for coffee with someone who's done something similar. Notice that these all have one thing in common. They're specific, they're doable in a week or less, and they move you forward without requiring you to have the whole path figured out. This is how momentum works when everything is uncertain. You don't have to wait until you can see the whole staircase. You take the step in front of you. Then you take the next step that becomes visible. Each next step is evidence. It's evidence that you're not stuck, evidence that you're moving forward, even when you can't see the entire destination. Evidence that you're still capable, that you're still growing, you're still building, and that evidence accumulated over time starts to shift your internal narrative from I'm lost to I'm just in transition. Look, I am not going to tell you that navigating radical change is easy. It's not. It's disorienting. It's exhausting. And some days you wake up and you just don't want to do it. Just know the people who get through it aren't the ones with perfect plans or unlimited resources. They're the ones who can see what's still true about themselves, who give themselves permission to rebuild differently, who refuse to do it alone and always commit to taking the next step. You didn't choose this disruption, but you can choose how you navigate it. And know this, some of the most aligned and meaningful work I've seen people create came right after the path that got disrupted. Not because the disruption was easy, but because it forced them to build something that was actually theirs. Now, if this episode added value to your day, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss what's coming. Drop a comment and tell me what resonated with you and what strategies you're using in your transition. I read all the comments, and your insights help shape our next episode. Okay, friends, thank you for joining me off the record, and I will see you the next time.